1 minute ago, just 1 minute ago, Iran has struck a United States military installation. Not a base you have seen on the news before. Not a facility that appears on any public map. Not a location that any official in Washington has ever stood in front of a camera and acknowledged. A secret base. A hidden installation. The kind of place that governments spend billions of dollars to keep invisible. Because what happens inside those walls is never meant for public eyes. And Iran found it. And Iran hid it. Right now, at this very moment, the most powerful government on earth is in a state of shock. The phones are ringing in rooms that do not officially exist. The generals are gathered around tables in locations you will never visit. The intelligence chiefs are pulling up information that you will never be allowed to read. And at the center of all of this, sitting with an expression that the cameras have not yet captured, is Donald Trump. Shocked, angry, calculating. What is Trump going to do? What is his next move? What does this moment mean? Not just for America, not just for Iran, but for every single nation on this planet that has been watching this confrontation build for years. I am going to tell you, I am going to walk you through every layer of this situation. I am going to show you the strategy behind what Iran just did. I am going to show you the calculations happening inside Trump's mind right now. I am going to show you the hidden players, the nations working behind the scenes that mainstream media will not talk about. And I am going to give you my full prediction, not just for the next 72 hours, but for the next 6 months. Because this moment right now is one of those moments in history that looks like a single event on the surface, but is actually the beginning of something much larger underneath. Stay with me. Do not go anywhere. Because what I am about to share with you today is the most important analysis I have delivered on this channel in a very long time. Before I go deep, I have something special for my students. I discovered something powerful, the TPP system. That is exactly why the TPP system was created. Most people stay poor not because of the economy, but because of their internal programming. This is not a normal course. It is a complete financial re-engineering project. It functions in 3 stages. Stage 1, the mind wipe. We destroy your scarcity mindset. We rip out limiting beliefs. We rebuild your self-image. You begin believing, my results come from me, not the world. Stage 2, the machine. We install a productivity engine, deep work, dopamine control, habit automation. We transform you from a reactive victim into an intentional machine. Systems over motivation. Stage 3, the wealth OS. We completely rewrite your relationship with money. Wealth thinking, high performance, emotional control. We do not teach you how to chase money. We teach you how to think like the 1%. This is not motivation. This is financial re-engineering. And here is why thousands join with confidence. You receive a full 60-day money-back guarantee. Use the system for 2 full months. If your mindset and financial clarity do not transform, you pay absolutely nothing. 0 risk, complete protection. The investment is $5,399 one time. One decision can change your financial trajectory forever. Don't worry, I already placed the link in the description and pinned comment. Click the link right now and enter the TPP system. This is Professor Jiang. Authentic, calculated, guaranteed. Secure your position now. And let us get back into today's analysis, because what I am about to show you next is the part that most people in this world will never understand. And the reason why that gap between those who know and those who do not know only grows wider with every passing year. Now, let me take you back to where this story truly begins. Because the biggest mistake most people make when they watch breaking news, when something dramatic explodes into the headlines, is they think it started today. They think the story began the moment the cameras showed up. It never starts today. Every geopolitical earthquake, every military strike, every political collapse, every unexpected dramatic event in international affairs, it always has roots that go deep, roots that were planted months ago, sometimes years ago, sometimes decades ago. And what happened today between Iran and the United States, the roots of this go all the way back to decisions made long before today's headlines were ever written. So let me give you the foundation. Let me show you what was really building beneath the surface. Because once you understand the foundation, once you see the architecture of how we got here, then my prediction for what happens next will make complete sense to you. Iran has been in a state of what I call strategic patience for the last several years. Now, I want you to understand what strategic patience actually means, because it sounds calm, it sounds passive, it sounds like waiting, and in one sense, It is waiting, but it is the most dangerous kind of waiting. Strategic patience is not weakness. Strategic patience is a predator being completely still while it studies exactly where to strike for maximum impact. Iran watched. Iran observed. Iran studied every movement of American military assets in the region. Iran tracked the positioning of U.S. intelligence infrastructure. Iran built networks through its proxies, through its intelligence services, through years of patient infiltration that gave it a picture of American activity in the region that most people in Washington would be horrified to know Iran possesses. And while Iran was building that picture, the United States was doing what powerful nations often do. They were assuming that their secrets were secret. They were assuming that their hidden installations were truly hidden. They were operating with the confidence, sometimes the arrogance, of a superpower that has never truly had to fear an enemy reaching inside its most protected spaces. Iran exploited that confidence. Iran exploited that assumption. And today, with one strike on one secret location, Iran delivered a message that cannot be unheard by anyone in Washington. Your assumption of invisibility is over. We see you, we can reach you, and we just proved it. Now let us talk about the specific nature of this strike, because understanding why Iran chose this particular target at this particular moment tells you everything about the strategy behind it. This was not a random target. Nothing in Iranian military strategy is random. The commanders in Tehran, the men who plan these operations, are not reckless. They are methodical. They think in terms of years, not days. A secret United States airbase is not just a military target. It is a symbolic target. It is a psychological target. When Iran strikes something that America officially denies even exists, Iran wins on multiple levels simultaneously. On the military level, it demonstrates capability. It shows that Iranian intelligence can penetrate the deepest layers of American secrecy in the region. On the political level, it puts Washington in an impossible public position. How do you respond to an attack on a base you officially do not acknowledge? If you acknowledge the base to justify your response, you admit that you have been operating secret military installations in the region. If you deny the attack, you look weak and dishonest. If you respond with force, you are potentially escalating a confrontation over a facility you cannot explain to your own public. This is a trap, a beautifully constructed strategic trap, and Iran knew it was a trap when they built it. On the psychological level, and this is perhaps the most important level of all, it shakes confidence. Inside the US military establishment, inside the intelligence community, inside the political leadership, there is now a question that has never been asked with this level of urgency before. If they found this, what else do they know? That question, that single terrifying question, is more powerful than any weapon Iran could have deployed. Because it makes every single secret operation, every single hidden asset, every single classified program inside the American military and intelligence apparatus suddenly feel uncertain, suddenly feel exposed, suddenly feel vulnerable. Iran did not just strike a building today. Iran struck a feeling, and that feeling, that sudden awareness of vulnerability, will echo through Washington's decision-making for months and years to come. Now I want to go even deeper into Iran's internal calculation, because this strike did not only send a message outward, to Washington, to the world, to every nation watching, it sent a message inward, to the Iranian people themselves. And this is the layer of this analysis that almost nobody in Western media is talking about right now. Because Western media tends to look at Iran from the outside. They analyze the military capability, they analyze the diplomatic positioning, they analyze the sanctions and the economy, but they rarely ask, what is happening inside Iran politically? What pressures is the Iranian government managing domestically? And how does this strike serve those internal pressures? Let me tell you, Iran's economy has been under severe strain. The sanctions have not destroyed Iran. Iran has proven far more resilient than its enemies hoped. But they have caused real, painful damage to the daily lives of ordinary Iranian citizens. Inflation has been punishing, the currency has weakened dramatically, the middle class has shrunk. Young Iranians, educated, connected, aware of the wider world through technology, are frustrated, they are restless. There have been protests inside Iran, significant ones, the kind that governments take very seriously because they reveal cracks in the foundation of popular support. A government managing that level of internal pressure faces a choice.
It can try to solve the economic problems, which takes years and requires conditions outside its immediate control. Or it can redirect the energy. It can create a moment, a powerful, visible, dramatic moment that shifts the emotional attention of the population from internal frustration to external pride. A successful strike on a secret American military base, the most powerful military in the world, is exactly that kind of moment. Inside Iran right now, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of feelings about the government, regardless of economic frustration, there is a deep cultural and national pride in the idea that Iran can reach out and touch the most powerful nation on earth in its most secret places. That feeling is real, and it is powerful, and the Iranian government knows it. So understand, this strike was not just military strategy, it was domestic political strategy simultaneously. Two birds, one extraordinarily precise stone. That is the sophistication of what we are dealing with here. Now, Donald Trump. Let us talk about the man who is sitting at the center of this crisis right now. I have studied Donald Trump's decision-making patterns for years, not as a political supporter or opponent, but as an analyst, as someone who observes how leaders respond under extreme pressure, how their psychology drives their choices, how their instincts sometimes override their strategy, and how their strategy sometimes fails to control their instincts. Trump is a man built on a very specific foundation. That foundation is dominance. Everything about Trump's public identity, everything about how he presents himself, how he speaks, how he negotiates, how he leads, it is all built on the projection of absolute dominance. The message is always the same. I am stronger. I am tougher. Nobody pushes me around. Nobody challenges me without consequences. This is not just a personality trait. For Trump, this is a governing philosophy. This is his theory of how power works in the world. If you project absolute strength, enemies back down. If you show any weakness, enemies advance. So what happens to a man built on this foundation when an enemy does the one thing his entire philosophy says should be impossible? What happens when Iran, a nation Trump has sanctioned, threatened, pressured, and publicly dismissed, reaches inside America's most secret military infrastructure and strikes it? The answer is not simple, and this is where most analysts get it wrong. Most people will tell you, Trump will retaliate massively and immediately because that is what his image demands. I am telling you something different. Trump is in a collision right now, a collision between his instinct, which screams retaliation, power, dominance, and his calculation, which is telling him that the situation is far more complicated than his instinct wants to admit. Because the generals in the room with Trump right now are showing him things that his public persona cannot account for. They are showing him the full picture of what a military response to Iran actually looks like on paper. And what it looks like on paper is not a clean, quick, powerful strike that makes America look strong and Iran look defeated. What it looks like on paper is a chain reaction that begins with a US strike on Iran and ends in a place that nobody in that room, no matter how powerful, no matter how confident, can fully predict or control. And Trump knows instinctively, even if he will never say it publicly, that unpredictable situations are dangerous situations, even for the most powerful man in the world. Let me explain that chain reaction, because this is the part of this analysis that I believe is most critical for you to understand. Iran does not stand alone. I want you to really absorb that statement. Because Western media, and particularly American media, has a consistent habit of presenting Iran as an isolated, economically struggling nation that is fighting against the entire world. That image is misleading, dangerously misleading. Iran is the central node in a network that has been built patiently and deliberately over decades. A network of alliances, partnerships, proxy forces, and strategic relationships that stretches across the entire Middle East and connects into the foreign policy calculations of two of the most powerful nations on earth, Russia and China. When Iran acts, that network activates, not all at once, not in an obvious, coordinated way that makes the connection clear and undeniable, but in a distributed, layered way that multiplies the pressure on the United States from multiple directions simultaneously. In Lebanon, Hezbollah, the most capable non-state military force on the planet, armed with precision missiles that can reach deep into Israel and beyond, with fighters who have spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of extended conflict. Hezbollah does not need specific orders for every action. It knows its role. It has known its role for years. It is ready. In Yemen, the Houthi forces, who have already demonstrated to the genuine shock of the entire world that they can strike international shipping in the Red Sea, that they can hit targets across vast distances with drones and missiles that military analysts did not believe they possessed, that they are willing to absorb enormous punishment, airstrikes, blockades, international pressure, and keep fighting. The Houthis have shown the world that a relatively small force with the right weapons and the right will can disrupt the entire global trading system. That lesson has not been forgotten. In Iraq, multiple armed factions with deep Iranian connections, with the capability to strike American forces and installations across the country, with the political protection of a government that is itself deeply divided about its relationship with Washington. Iraq is a country where American forces are present, but not fully welcome, and where Iranian influence runs deep through the political, military, and social fabric of the nation. In Syria, Iranian military presence, Russian military presence, a complex web of forces and interests that makes any American military operation in that theater extraordinarily complicated. Syria is a chessboard with pieces belonging to multiple players, and moving one piece triggers reactions from all the others. And beyond the immediate region, Russia, not intervening directly, but watching, and making very clear through back channels that any American military action that threatens Iranian stability is an action that affects Russian strategic calculations. Russia has its own equities in the Middle East, its own alliances, its own access rights, its own economic interests in regional stability on its terms. Russia will not fight America's war, but Russia will make America's response to Iran as complicated and as costly as possible. And China, the silent architect of the alternative world order that is being built, brick by brick, trade agreement by trade agreement, relationship by relationship, while the United States is focused on putting out fires in the Middle East. This is what Trump's generals are showing him right now. This is the chain reaction on paper. A military strike on Iran does not end with Iran. It begins something that nobody in Washington, regardless of how powerful they feel right now, can fully control once it starts. So what does Trump actually do? Here is my prediction, and I want you to listen to every word carefully, because I am going to walk you through this step by step, day by day, so that when you watch the news over the coming weeks, you will understand exactly what you are seeing and why it is happening. In the first 24 hours, Trump speaks loudly, powerfully, with anger and with threats. He goes to the cameras. He delivers the kind of statement that his political base demands and his personal identity requires. Strength, defiance, warnings that carry weight. The language will be extreme. It will sound like war is hours away. Markets will react sharply. Oil prices will spike, possibly significantly. Media will go into full breaking news mode around the clock. The world will hold its breath. Every ally will call Washington. Every adversary will watch Washington. Every financial market in the world will reprice based on what it thinks Washington is about to do. But no military strike will come in those first 24 hours. In the 24 to 72-hour window, behind the public theater of Trump's angry statements, the real activity begins. Back channels open quietly. Intermediaries are contacted with urgency. Qatar, which has historically played the critical role of communication bridge between Washington and Tehran when official dialogue is impossible, receives urgent messages from both sides. Other regional actors, Oman, Turkey, possibly others, are engaged as facilitators. The diplomatic machinery that always operates in the shadows during these moments begins working at full speed. Simultaneously, the U.S. military makes visible moves. Naval assets reposition in ways that the world can see and interpret. Air Force assets go to heightened readiness. Troop deployments are announced or strongly hinted at in statements from the Pentagon. All of this theater of military preparedness is designed to demonstrate capability and seriousness, to give Trump something to point to as proof of decisive action, without being the first move in an actual shooting war. In the 72-hour to 2-week window, the nature of the American response becomes clearer. And my prediction is this: it will not be a direct strike on Iranian territory. It will be targeted strikes on Iranian proxy forces in Syria or Iraq. Actions that allow Trump to stand in front of the cameras and say he responded with force. Actions that allow the military to demonstrate power and precision. But actions that stop short of crossing the line that would fully trigger the chain reaction I described. Iran will respond to those proxy strikes, not with a massive escalation, but with calibrated counter moves, proxy actions of their own, disruptions to regional shipping, possibly cyber operations against American digital infrastructure. Actions designed to demonstrate that Iran absorbed the hit and hit back without crossing into the territory of full open war. And this dance, this dangerous, delicate, exhausting, expensive dance will continue for weeks, possibly months. Each side probing, each side demonstrating, each side trying to impose costs without triggering the catastrophic escalation that neither side, despite the public rhetoric, actually wants. Until one of two things happens. Either a negotiated back-channel framework emerges, a quiet agreement, one that will never be publicly announced as such, that gives both sides a way to reduce the temperature without either publicly admitting retreat. A face-saving arrangement built in the shadows of diplomacy. Or one move goes too far. One strike kills people that trigger a mandatory response. One commander makes a decision that his superiors did not authorize in time. One miscalculation turns a controlled escalation into something that cannot be controlled. And that is the scenario that must be taken seriously. Not the war that people choose with full awareness. The war that nobody chose, but that happened anyway, because the machinery of controlled pressure broke down in a single, unexpected moment. Now I want to take you to Beijing, because China is not a passive observer in this situation. China is an active, strategic, deeply calculating player. And China's role in what unfolds over the next weeks and months may ultimately be more decisive than anything America or Iran does directly. China's strategic relationship with Iran is built on layers. The economic layer. China needs Iranian oil in enormous quantities, and it buys that oil at discounted prices that American sanctions were designed to make impossible. This trade keeps Iran economically viable and gives China cheap energy that fuels its manufacturing economy. The strategic layer. Iran serves as a source of permanent friction for American power in the Middle East. As long as Iran is strong enough to challenge American dominance in the region, America's military attention, diplomatic energy, and financial resources are tied up in the Middle East, tied up in ways that reduce Washington's capacity to focus on China in the Pacific. From Beijing's perspective, a strong Iran is a gift, a free distraction, a perpetual drain on American strategic resources. The geopolitical layer. China is building an alternative architecture for global relationships. The Belt and Road Initiative, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, new payment systems that bypass the dollar, new trade routes that bypass American-controlled choke points. Iran is a piece in that architecture, an important piece. Losing Iran, or losing Iran's cooperation, damages that larger construction project. So what does China do now? China will not take Iran's side publicly in a way that creates a direct confrontation with Washington. That is not China's style, and it is not in China's immediate interest. What China will do is work through every available back channel to prevent a full war. Because here is the part that is counterintuitive. A full-scale war in the Middle East, even one that damages American power, is actually bad for China's economic interests in ways that outweigh the strategic benefits. A full war disrupts oil markets catastrophically. It drives prices to levels that damage China's manufacturing economy. It disrupts the shipping routes that carry Chinese goods to European and American markets. It creates the kind of global instability that makes investors and trading partners nervous about committing to long-term relationships with China. China wants a world where it is steadily, patiently gaining power, not a world on fire.